Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I have an exciting card project for you today. I am using the Be Happy die set from the new Pixi Dust Designs release for May 2023. So this is the die set. It's got tons in it and lots of cute images. I love a fat happy bee. So we are going to start with our background. I thought I'd do a little bit of ink blending today. So I have two colors of Distress Oxide. I'm starting with Mustard Seed and I'm trying to cover kind of the center, but I'm keeping in mind the shape of that sort of hexagon hive pattern. I don't want it to be a whole lot bigger than that. And then I'm coming in with some Spice Marmalade just to create a little bit of variation in color. I also wanted to do a little bit of splatter on this card. I'm starting with some white acrylic paint and adding just a little bit of water, just enough to thin it out. I like to use my teeny tiny brush. I don't have a lot of control over the size of the splatter no matter what size brush I use, but I have a little more control when I use the little one. This is then some glossy black acrylic paint. I just found it at my local craft store. It's nothing super fancy. But I thought that added a nice extra layer of texture and dimension to it. Then I'm moving on to ink blending and assembling my die cut pieces while my paint dries. Here I have our beehive and I'm using melon ink. It's a really pale orange. I tried ink blending with some different yellows and I just felt like it wasn't giving me the depth, the richness of color that I wanted. My yellow cardstock for this one is, I think it's called Hello Honey. It is a honey colored cardstock. And so it's already sort of darker and richer than like a lemon yellow. So this worked really well just to add a hint of depth. You could totally skip the ink blending if you want, not necessary. I used my black alcohol marker just to color in the little hole, the entrance to the beehive, so I didn't have to cut that out of a whole nother piece of cardstock. Then I'll start assembling my bees. There are 3 bees in this set. We're going to use 2 of them for today's card. For this bee, I have added a little ink to each of the edges of the bee and the edge of the face, and then I will add the body and the face. You certainly can add the face a couple of ways. There's an easier way to do it than what I did. I kept all the little pieces that were die cut out of the face, and now I'm just coloring them in with a black alcohol marker, and I will use a tiny little bit of glue and I will inlay those die cut pieces. If you don't want to do that, you can just use a marker, and before you attach the face piece, color in the backer using your black marker. So the holes will show black through that face die cut. There are also antennae on the face piece and the backer piece. I trimmed those off because I cut out these antennae out of black and I didn't want any of the yellow antenna showing around. If you wanted the stability of the layers, then you certainly could just take a marker around the edges of those and that would work too. This next bee, you're looking at from the back. And so the black piece, the stripes, go up partway into the head. And I decided to cut that off just for this card. And then I am going to glue that to the backer, the body of our bee. You could certainly leave it on. It's just 2 different looks. If you want to cut it off, there's a debossed line that shows you right where the curve of that would be. So it was really easy. And then I'm trimming my antenna so I can attach my black ones. And finally, I have my wings. I've cut all of my wings today out of some silver vellum. So it's just a slight bit of shimmer to these translucent wings. And I thought that that was a lot of fun. This tree is from the spring box card die set, and I really am just going to use the branch today. I only wanted that piece, but I am going to ink blend the whole thing because I'll keep the rest of it for another card. And there are all kinds of debossed details on that tree, and when you put just the slightest little bit of ink over it, it really helps those to stand out. So I am adding my branch, and this is what I'm going to hang my beehive from. If you don't have the spring box card, that's okay. You could hang that beehive from the top of the card. You could draw in a branch. You could freehand cut a branch like that. It's a pretty easy shape to cut. Any of those things would work. So I have attached my honeycomb shape using just a little bit of liquid glue, and then I will attach my beehive to the branch. the beehive is lifted very slightly from those hexagons. And so it makes it look like that entrance to the beehive, that little black dot is sort of recessed back behind it. And I love that. That was sort of a happy accident as I was putting everything together. I'm attaching my bees using some black foam squares. These are 1mm foam squares. And I just like the lift that it gives, just a little bit, so that the wings and the transparency of the wings becomes more apparent. I think it just adds a little extra something. I am attaching them a little prematurely. I am going to end up cutting this down. So anyway, we'll get there. I can't make a card without changing my mind at least once. I'm including the sentiment, be happy. Both of those words are included in this die set, and it's a lovely scripty font, and they nestle so beautifully in together. Once I trim off the excess from my branch, I'm looking at the whole thing, and it just feels like there's too much white space at the bottom. Like maybe if I had moved the composition a little bit, that would be fine. But in the end, I actually like how this turns out even better, creating a little border. So I used my heat tool to loosen up the adhesive behind the foam squares, and I am trimming off a total of 1/2 inch from the top and bottom and 1/2 inch from the sides, right? So it's not like an equal 1/4 inch from each side. I just kind of went around trying to preserve the spacing from the branch, and then that be happy. This card base has been in my stash for a long, long time, and it already had a wood grain embossed pattern that I thought kind of made it look like it was part of the tree that branch came from. I popped up my panel, my card front, on a little bit of foam tape, and I've added that to the front of my card, and that will finish everything off for today. If you like this card, please give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment below, and consider subscribing, and I will see you next time.